Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us for our webinar today, Why Developing Technology Skills is Essential for Nonprofits. Before we get started, I just want to go over a few housekeeping items, so all callers will be muted. If you have questions during the webinar, feel free to ask them using the chat box that you see on the left-hand side of your screen. If you lose your internet connection, just refresh the link using the link that was emailed to you when you registered. And then if you have to drop off early or if you want to watch the webinar again, we'll be hosting the webinar on our website, techsoup.org/community/events-webinars. We'll also be sending an email with the presentation, the recording, and any relevant links that we talk about today. And then if you're on social media and you want to tweet at us, we are at TechSoup, and you can use hashtag TSWebinars. But like I said earlier, we'll be using the chat box that you see on the left-hand side. So just a little bit about TechSoup. We are located in 236 countries and territories. We work with several technology companies to make our mission possible, offering donated or discounted technologies. Companies like Adobe, Amazon Web Services, Intuit, Microsoft, Symantec, and then also we work with a new member of our family is Pluralsight, which is who we have with us here today. And they offer technology. It's a technology learning platform, and then they also have a social enterprise that is committed to activating the company's resources to democratizing technology skills. And then I'm just going to go ahead and introduce myself. So my name is Seema Tucker. I am the online learning producer here at TechSoup. We have Zareen Kazi. She's the marketing associate, and she's going to be helping me on the back end. And then today's presenter is Lindsey Kneuven, and she is the Head of Social Impact at Pluralsight. In her role, Lindsey leads all global philanthropic initiatives, implementing strategies that align Pluralsight's product, culture, community, people, and brand to make a meaningful impact on the way the world learns. So I am going to go ahead and pass it off to Lindsey.
Great. Thank you so much. And I just wanted to begin by thanking each of you for the important work you do in our global community. It's really a pleasure to be here sharing with you all today. So I wanted to begin by telling you a brief story about this man. This was my grandfather with my uncle long before I was born. He was a man who pursued his vision and lived his values to the max, and has always been an inspiration to me, and one that led me to embrace and find comfort in moonshots. And I know, for all of you on the call, we have a bold vision to change the world, and so this story has been sort of an anchor in that journey for me. My grandfather, his name was Elliot C. His dream was to overcome the limits of technology and create a new frontier through flight. He became an experimental test pilot and was focused, his life and his career was focused on pushing the world's newest and fastest planes as high and as fast and as far as they could go. His life was engineered around overcoming barriers and stripping constraints and assumptions away to unlock potential. And for him, really life was about evolving technology to push the barriers and limits of humankind. So on September 12th, 1962, there was this moment in American history, and this moment unlocked a whole new realm of possibility for my grandfather and really for the broader world. JFK, in a speech that he delivered in Houston, he said, "We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they're easy, but because they are hard." And this speech that he delivered marked the real launch of the International Space Program and set a clock in motion. He had this aggressive goal that he shared of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to Earth within 10 years. And this moment marked a really catalytic moment for my grandfather and for others. In response to this call to action, Elliot's personal moonshot found a new possibility with this national call to action. It had expanded his view, and it united people who shared his dreams around one massive collective goal. And he was selected for NASA's second group of astronauts that same year of JFK's speech. He was selected as prime command pilot of Gemini 9 with Charlie Bassett at his side. You see them here. My grandfather's on the left. And together they were part of a group of astronauts, engineers, and support teams working to break apart this huge challenge, anticipate and solve at every step along the way, test and iterate and test again. And they supported one another as they built out a strategy that would achieve this remarkable goal and land one of these astronauts on the moon. The men and women of the space program and the communities that were wrapped around them all were driven and united by this global moonshot. And they were solving for a future that they collectively saw possible for mankind. They were united suddenly by a mission that was so much bigger than one individual and the scope of one individual's dream. So this, to me, really reflects what we do daily in the nonprofit sector, having a incredible moonshot and vision for the future, and driving collectively towards these things that are sometimes perceived to be impossible. So I believe that the world is defined by these moonshots. And when we talk about a moonshot, this is the combination of a huge problem, a breakthrough technology, and a radical solution. And in answer to the question of why I shoot for the moon, Astro Teller, who's CEO of X, once said, "It matters because when you try to do something radically hard, you approach the problem differently than when you try to make something incrementally better." So a moonshot is just that. It is a 10x improvement. And most times we are shooting for a 10% improvement in our work. But a moonshot is when you're shooting for that exponential improvement. And that requires more than hard work alone. So I see this as a constant in the NGO world. We're constantly trying to solve and eradicate really hard, complex problems, and problems that require these 10x improvements. For Pluralsight 1, we have defined our own moonshot. That is, as Seema mentioned, to democratize technology skills. We see this as not only our mission, but also as our moonshot, because to truly achieve the depth of that vision and its intention around the globe, it is representative of a huge complex problem that requires a radical solution. And we do this in a number of ways. We have a shared mission of democratizing technology skills here at Pluralsight, and we do that through the company by unlocking tech skills that power the future of business, and through Pluralsight 1, our social enterprise, by improving equal access to tech skills and investing in catalytic solutions. Pluralsight 1 for us is sort of that rocket ship that for us is unlocking a new frontier. It's extending our reach and propelling our impact among a community that can't be served by the traditional business alone. And we've set out to tackle something that many may think is impossible, and that's the nature of a truly bold moonshot. In doing this, we have identified a huge problem. We know that 50% of the world's children achieve minimum proficiency in reading and math by the time they leave school. We know that today's young people aged 15 to 24 make up 18% of the global population, but 40% of the global unemployed. And we know that the global poverty rate could be reduced by more than half if all adults completed secondary education and could access dignified employment. So for us, this is really at the root of what drives us. It's these challenges are inhibiting potential and standing in the way of self-sufficiency, independence, and each individual's ability to make their own free choice. We know that education is critical for the future, and that equal access to high-quality, relevant education is essential for individuals accessing the future of work and dignified employment. And part of our huge problem that we're tackling is that this problem is complex and is compounded by inequality. We know that children in Africa and South Asia are just reaching levels of education the developed world reached 100 years ago, and that it's going to take another 100 years for children in developing countries to reach the education levels we have today. And this is really speaking to reading and math. It's not even speaking to tech skills development. So that barrier is even more significant. Without urgent change, we know that more than 1.5 billion adults will have no education beyond primary school in 2030. So for us, the current education structure globally is not working and has to change. We are focused on this problem. This is our root challenge. And we also see this taking shape in the nonprofit community. Here is a snapshot as we think about how to tackle our huge problem and our radical solution. One of the core components is really ensuring that nonprofits around the world have the capacity and the tool set they need to tackle our global challenges today. Here we conducted a global needs assessment over the past year and a half, and we surfaced a number of challenges that nonprofits across 16 countries were experiencing. Many of these are related to technology. So I share them today because these were a response to our directed discovery, our needs assessment, and these organizations were really struggling to scale their models and to break apart their huge problems and achieve progress against their mission because of constraints they were facing in these areas. So here on this slide, these are captured from these nonprofit interviews. We saw internal capacity building challenges related to budget, to growing their teams and their people, or relying on volunteers to scale their work, to connectivity and infrastructure challenges that resulted in barriers to scaling their model, to leadership and their ability to leverage technology. I wanted to drill into this one further with you all today, as it has been the focus of our work. On this slide, you'll see these 6 themes were surfaced by the nonprofits that we interviewed in our needs assessment as fundamental challenges to their digital transformation. And this matters because, when we think about our huge problem, one of the considerable challenges is that organizations need to apply and leverage technology to keep pace with the future of work and engage their donors. They also need technology-enabled solutions to really scale their model. So this digital transformation is often prohibiting organizations to achieve their full potential. These 6 elements of digital transformation were identified by nonprofits of all sizes and across 16 countries, as I mentioned, as core themes and barriers to their catalytic growth. Security is one, and is something that I would encourage all of you to think about as you continue to grow your model. This was identified as an element of particular importance to organizations because they need to protect the data and security of their donors as well as the populations that they serve, but often don't have the capacity or the knowledge internally to keep pace with the evolution of this realm. And so they feel quite vulnerable and need support to be able to do this well. Also, cloud was indicated as another area of focus for organizations, an area where they were seeking knowledge and resources. We know that businesses of all kinds, whether in the social sector or not, are finding extreme value in moving to the cloud. And nonprofits were facing a lot of challenges around this, either feeling that the stakeholders that drive their models and provide funding to support their work are not investing in these types of organizational moves, or may not be aware of the value that it can create for an organization as they continue to grow. Data was another, where effective data storage and analytic technologies were perceived as a really considerable barrier for organizations, and one that not only can help create informed decision making internally, but also enable them to communicate and demonstrate the power of their intervention or their model to the various stakeholders that they have. This was an area where we have more and more sophisticated tools tied to things like data visualizations and analytics, but those may be unfamiliar or unavailable to nonprofits. So this was an area that was representative of another barrier that was identified by organizations large and small. Also, dev and donated sort of fell in line as two key themes. The point here that was raised by nonprofits was that these organizations often feel reliant on donated or discounted technologies, and that reliance can drive their tech strategies in a way that that is hindering their ability to make decisions that are best for the business. And so one of the efforts that we have been doing in response to this identified concern was really to help organizations identify ways to build a tech strategy and build a tech stack, leveraging these accessible resources, but doing it in a way that is really strategic and driving impact for their mission. And then communication was also a big one that was a theme pulled from these interviews. Mobile and social functionality were essential tools to the success of nonprofits, and this was a theme that we saw both domestically and internationally, particularly for those working in areas with low bandwidth settings. So communication, understanding what tools are out there, what technologies would enable them to communicate effectively both with their own teams, with their stakeholders, and with their beneficiary populations was a huge challenge that was identified. So we know that tech can transform how we solve the world's greatest challenges. And to do that, we need to really build out the tech skills that empower organizations to achieve their mission and to do their best work. We also found during these interviews that nonprofits were really focused on how they could build tech skills within their beneficiary populations. This need was surfaced because organizations are thinking about the future of work, and no matter what industry they are supporting beneficiaries to transition into, they're seeing that tech is touching that world. So they are currently, the pain point that was expressed is that they are really trying to understand how to connect someone who may not be a digital native with the skills needed to be successful in any industry, whether it's agriculture or healthcare or the social sector or a tech-specific industry. And so for organizations, one of the key pain points they're seeing is knowing where to start with the beneficiary populations they're serving and how to build out that curriculum set that is both meeting the unique needs of the population served, but also dynamic and responsive to the incredibly fast evolution of technology. We also know that there are differences in the way individuals learn and the wraparound support that they need. So we saw organizations really grappling with how to provide those elements of psychosocial support or or something that is directly relevant to that beneficiary's experience, while also pairing them with the skill sets needed to unlock dignified employment and transition to a sustainable livelihood. We saw a number of other challenges around measurement and scalability, all focused on really how to equip beneficiaries with the skills needed to keep pace and ensure that they are not becoming more vulnerable as the future of work evolves. Here you see another set of skill gaps identified by nonprofits in regards to beneficiaries. So there were concerns around digital literacy and a need to educate beneficiaries who may not have a foundational knowledge of tech and its relevance to their goals and their dreams. We saw infrastructure challenges around mobile access, and that beneficiaries may not have even something as sort of ubiquitous now as a mobile device, and that organizations are now trying to understand how to convey to donors the need for a very different communication mechanism and set of resources that enables them to meet beneficiaries where they are and empower them with the skills and resources that they need to be successful. Again, we saw soft skills, nonprofit organizations seeing a huge need to train beneficiaries in the soft skills that wrap around these job opportunities, and then pair those soft skills with more technical skills that help them be dynamic in the face of a very changeable work environment. And lastly, we saw the need to skill up individuals and beneficiary populations as tech professionals. And this is sort of a loaded term, but what they meant by this was that there are tech professional skills that now are quite standard across any industry, including things like Office 365 and Google Suite, that can become barriers to employment if they are inaccessible skill sets. So we know that technology has the power to create agency, and yet we know there are also barriers that nonprofits face in skilling up the populations that they serve, as well as equipping their own teams with the skill sets they need to keep pace in a very fast evolving sector. Our Pluralsight One, back to our moonshot, our focus has been on building a radical solution. And for us, that is to disrupt the way the world learns technology skills. And I share the following approach to give you a sense of how we are tackling that, in the hopes that it can also help you think through opportunities within your model to collaborate with others, and also to design strategies around technology to ensure that both your operational and your programmatic work is infused with the tech elements necessary for long-term success. So here you see, this was originally, I believe, a graphic designed by UNESCO. This is demonstrating the progression from foundational skills onto transferable skills up to technical and vocational skills. And on the left side, you see the sort of ladder from primary to lower secondary to upper secondary that many individuals transition through as they go through the formal education process. And then on the right side, you see individuals who are served by nonprofit organizations who are often providing a second chance or work-based training to supplement or to account for gaps in learning or attrition from the formal education system. So these ladders lead to that opportunity and that technical and vocational skill set that then can transition individuals to dignified employment. Pluralsight One has been really focused on identifying opportunities across those two ladders, and as a result, we have been building a set of solutions focused on wrapping the resources that we have available, both in terms of human capital and in terms of our technology, to really augment and supplement the resources that both students and learners in the formal education space have, as well as nonprofit professionals and beneficiaries have in the NGO space. And we know that there's no silver bullet to these issues, that this requires really, in response to the huge problem, it requires really collective action and a suite of resources. So one of the things that we have found most valuable in developing our response to the needs we've identified and the needs that nonprofits surfaced in the slides previously has been that we are really determining where our strength lies, and then how to partner with organizations across the social sector, across academia, across government, and across the private sector to create kind of a coalition that has a suite of resources, and how collectively we can provide different different tools that help organizations and individuals along that journey, and are really respectful of the holistic nature of this work and their more wraparound needs. I wanted to show you a snapshot of how we think about impact. These are 4 case studies of organizations from around the world that have participated in our needs assessment and our product development process. These are organizations who really are doing very diverse bodies of work, and they are also of very different sizes and maturity levels. And I share this to give you insight into how they're thinking about technology skills and how they are thinking about tech-enabled solutions as an enabler and an accelerant to their work and models. So I'll just share my screen here for a moment. Bear with me.
Everywhere across the globe. We know that talent exists everywhere across the globe. Opportunity is not as pervasive. The more people who have access to technology skills, the more freedom, equality, and opportunity we will see in the world. Pluralsight 1 is our commitment to driving lasting, significant social impact by equipping people in underserved and marginalized communities and working with our nonprofit partners to bring the technology skills they need to help create better lives and a better future for us all.
The greatest challenges in my community is poverty and unemployment. My dream is to create virtual reality platforms that can help the youth to decide what you want to do in the future.
What excites me about education is to get the students open their minds to the newest technology. It's very important to be updated on what technology is coming up. To get better at this job, my only way is learning through online courses.
My dream is to end extreme poverty in rural Africa. With technology, our farmers or entrepreneurs can do mobile banking, they can get information, they can access the new trends of doing farming.
If there is a big global health problem in the world, PATH is trying to solve it. Whether that's the eradication of malaria, whether it's the Zika virus, Ebola, our programs touch the lives of about 150 million people a year worldwide. We're a nonprofit. We don't have lots to spend on classes, resources that are online help us push ourselves forward.
I think democratizing technology is important because it can help us to change the way the world sees us.
We need to ensure that we give the right knowledge to the students. It's my obligation to make the students a lifelong learner.
You never know what technology or what skills you're going to need that saves a life, or 10,000 lives, or 50,000 lives.
Through technology, women are going to be empowered. A woman is like an engine in the society. When you empower a woman with technology, you are empowering the society.
We believe that Pluralsight 1 can be the spark in unlocking human potential all over the world to help create a better future for all of us.
See if I can stop sharing here. Great. So that's an example for us of how we see impact taking shape in the lives and the work of both nonprofit organizations and the beneficiaries that they support around the world. To give you a sense, the organization featured there in the video, which Nada spoke to, the one that's based in Jordan, they have been utilizing and really exploring the use of tech solutions to help the youth who are conflict affected and refugees in the population there, in the community there, access virtual work through impact sourcing, and also explore more transformative technologies like VR and how they might enable individuals, youth who are experiencing barriers to education and employment, how technologies like that might enable them to really open up their view of opportunity and understand how different industries might take shape, what job paths might be available to them, so that they can pursue and extend their dreams more broadly than just what they might see in their local context. So we also saw the example of PATH. PATH is an organization that is focused on global health crises, and they have been exploring the use of data visualizations to help them map preventable diseases and then integrate their interventions in a way that heads off challenges before they spread. They also have been using those same technologies to communicate the impact of their work to the donor community. So I think examples like these really help us explore the potential for tech-enabled solutions to help organizations achieve their missions, as complex as they may be, and also scale their work and overcome some of the constraints that these organizations face. So in closing, we have, as impossible as our mission through Pluralsight One may seem, we believe that collectively our opportunity to create the future is here. We have more resources available than ever before, and we believe that we are at this tipping point moment in human history where technology can be applied in really powerful ways to prevent vulnerability and to enable organizations that are expert in the work that they do and expert at solving really complex human and environmental challenges to scale that work and ideally end these challenges in our lifetime. So coming back to the original example, we had this defining moment in human history, and the magic of this moment is that these were a group of individuals who were bold enough and strong enough. They were willing to take action, and they took risks and broke the envelope of possibility. And in doing that, these groups of individuals who were part of the space program managed to achieve the impossible. And they did it within 8 years rather than 10, which was JFK's original call to action. So as I think about the parallel between this global moonshot of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to Earth, I also think about the opportunity that each of us have to define our own moonshot as an individual and as an organization. For me, that is ending poverty and inequality through education, technology, and great giving. And I have aligned my work to our disruptive and radical solution of changing the way the world learns. I think we all, in the social sector now have incredible complex challenges that we're facing, and we also have incredible opportunity. And I encourage you all to really assess the ways that technology can drive value in your mission and can help you accelerate your impact, whether it's through effective storytelling or it's through leveraging data to inform your decisions and scale your work. These are powerful tools that can be harnessed, and also that the private sector can collaborate with you on through mobilizing their communities to help support these tech-related needs that organizations face today. So a few considerations before we turn it over to Seema. We think often within Pluralsight One about organizations and their digital transformation. We think about how nonprofits are maturing in relation to technology and sort of where they are on that spectrum of both what is relevant and what's possible. And so I think as you continue to grow, to keep technology strategy as an element of your consideration and as of your broader organizational strategy is really an exciting opportunity. It helps to identify different ways that technology might accelerate your impact. So identifying those opportunities either to strengthen your operational capacity through the investment in tech skills that enable your team to really harness the available resources, available technology resources in the world to make progress towards your goals, but also transfer those skill sets to individuals who then can access the future of work that we see today. I think also really evaluating whether your programs are equipping your beneficiaries with the skills they need for the future of work. Again, we see middle and low skilled roles today drastically transforming and being touched by technology. We also see every industry becoming a technology industry in some way or another. So thinking about how to enable and empower your beneficiaries with technology skills that help them keep pace with that evolution, and also think through how they might become a lifelong learner so that they can explore and continue to develop their skills in the face of a rapidly changing work environment today. And then lastly, really thinking about a tech strategy as a discrete part of your strategic development and the way that you develop your model, evaluating again how technology is beneficial both to your operational and programmatic goals, and engaging your board and your leadership and your program teams in the development of as a social enterprise embedded within a company. I know we are eager to mobilize our teams to support through things like skills-based volunteerism, and are always happy to contribute to the capacity building of organizations and help them advance their work and realize those dreams by mobilizing the skill sets that we have. So I think that's an interesting opportunity to kind of broaden traditional partnerships and broaden the relationships that one has with a corporate entity or with a volunteer group. So just in closing, here's the little man to remind you of these moon pilots, which one of our employees here likes to call them. And a nice quote from Da Vinci. It says, "Once you've tasted flight, you will forever walk the earth with your eyes turned skyward, for there you have been, and there you will always long to return." And I see the work that each of you do as an incredible moonshot that's necessary to our global community. And I hope that technology can become an empowering and an enabling resource within that work and within that journey. So we certainly are always open to receiving feedback from nonprofit organizations about how companies like ours and employee groups like ours can mobilize to better serve the needs of your organizations as you go through these digital transformations. I will close there and pass back to Seema.
All right. Thank you, Lindsey. So we have a few minutes left for Q&A. So if you guys have questions, feel free to use the chat box that you should see on your screen, and Lindsey can answer any questions that you have. So we had one that came in while you were presenting. So somebody asked, the cloud seems to be the most practical to use rather than on-site. However, what if the cloud company goes out of business?
That is an interesting challenge that we have not experienced. One of the things that we have been focused on, and we actually have a free resource developed around, is we've created a technology sort of an index that tracks and presents technologies that are sticky. And so we are trying to take the approach of helping organizations really identify those tools and resources that are not only responsive to their needs, but also that will endure the test of time. So I would encourage you to check out resources like that are evaluating the longevity of a certain platform or a certain resource. But that is another great area where I think certainly a skills-based volunteer could also support migration of some of the solutions that you've built that may be sunsetting, and that's an interesting sort of project to present to a corporate partner. But unfortunately, I have not experienced that specific challenge and can't speak more directly to it.
Okay. So another question is, earlier you talked about some of the tech skills that nonprofits should be thinking about, and I think that included digital literacy, soft skills, mobile access, data. Is that like for a small organization in terms of what to tackle first? Is that something that should be done concurrently, or are there areas that you think people should focus on first?
Yeah, we certainly see data and security being the two at the forefront of those challenges, and I think the most pressing and the ones that pose the most risk to a business. So I would elevate those two. We also see organizations really responding to a moment of need, and by that I mean that they're investing in their skills development to meet a certain problem or a certain challenge or need that they have at that moment. And so there's a need for kind of rapidly digestible learning materials that help organizations overcome a certain challenge and then keep moving. And we recognize that nonprofit professionals are often both the generalists and specialists. They're juggling quite a lot of urgent priorities, and so we are working with partners in our communities in the private sector to surface and organize resources that can be responsive to those moments of need, and provide someone with a quick hit of information that enables them to resolve that challenge and continue moving, and then also unlock the opportunity for deeper learning when the time presents itself. So I'd say for us, as far as priorities and urgency goes, the ones that have really come to the forefront have been around data and security. And then from there, we see a lot of organizations balancing the other priorities through more just-in-time focused learning, kind of segments and snippets of learning that they can do to overcome that particular pain point or that particular project-based need. And then over time, they can build capacity around that area as they continue to grow.
Gotcha. Okay. And then in terms of is the onus really on the person who's dedicated to IT or, the executive director? I guess in terms of, technical skills and developing them, I guess where's the weight in terms of the distribution?
And I think especially when you have small organizations where individuals are really playing multiple roles, there's often not the luxury of a designated person. So again, we do encourage individuals to kind of think about a broader tech strategy. What are those different elements that they see as a risk or an opportunity to innovate within their business? And then infusing those skill sets across the team in order to kind of lift the full ship. We certainly see that individuals, at least within our nonprofit community, are investing at the programmatic team level. So you may have a program lead who's responsible for something in the field, and they are needing to build a discrete skill set in order to create a mobile app or something along those lines. And those projects don't always rest with a tech-focused team. We're seeing it take shape across an organization. So I think there, as the leaders are really thinking about scaling their work and scaling their program implementation, the more that can be a conscious piece of the strategic planning. What kind of skill sets might you need, and how can we infuse those skills across the leaders in those roles so that they can be adaptive and they can build the solutions that they need, or at least know how to evaluate the potential of a tech-enabled solution, and then work with a consultant or a volunteer or another member of their team to bring that to life. But we definitely see it taking shape in both ways. I would say for smaller organizations, we certainly see it more as a component part of a broader skill set and something that individuals are having to adapt to and learn, as they are also fulfilling their primary role.
All right. So I think that is all the questions that we have for today. I'm going to go ahead and close out today's webinar. So thank you, Lindsey, for that presentation. If you guys have a couple minutes when you're done with the webinar, if you don't mind, we have a post-event survey. So any feedback that you have for Lindsey or for myself, it's always really helpful for us, and it helps us dictate future content. If you're on social media, feel free to give us a follow. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and we also have a blog where we post a lot of helpful tips and tricks and how-tos and things like that. We have a few webinars that are coming up over December, so if you want to join us, you can see the link there. So you can just register there for whatever webinar you'd like to attend. And again, I would like to thank Lindsey. I'd like to thank our audience. I know it's right before a holiday break, so we appreciate you joining us today. And then also to Zareen for helping out on the back end, and we hope to see you again soon.